name is Mrs. Turner Bain. I am a geography teacher and I am located at Doris Johnson Senior High School. Okay. I want to thank Ms. Dames for giving me the opportunity to come in and share with you on this series. It's going to be a 3-part series and we're going to cover industries. Okay. So, I'm going to get started and we are going to look at now, I'm going to jump start and we're going to look at the importance of industries, okay? So just sort of like a history as well as what the importance of having industries, okay? Why they're so important. So let's get started. So I have a quick little video I want to start with and I hope you enjoy. I'll ask you some questions afterwards, so pay attention.
Just a minute. On today's show, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is the period when the Western world changed over from an agriculture-based society to an industrialized one, meaning machines replaced people's work. A machine can do the work of 100 people. It gathers, cuts, dyes, moves things, so that you can make more in less time. Wow! See, up until about 300 years ago, the world was based on home economics. That is, people made their own food and clothes. Right, what you made was what you ate. That's right. Then along came Mr. Watt, who perfected the steam engine, which provided power for the coal, steel, textile, and transportation industries, as well as machines which were installed in giant factories. Sounds good. The cities that sprang up around the factories were overcrowded and incredibly poor. Workers became small cogs in the large system, and people were only responsible for a tiny fraction of production, which caused exploitation of workers, mainly women and children, who worked long hours in terrible conditions. Even so, this was a revolution that changed the face of society, and mass production was on its way. And now for Bet You Didn't Know This! The steam engine was actually invented by the Greeks about 2,000 years ago, but it lay forgotten until Mr. Watt came along and revived it.
All right, so that's it, that's the video. And so now today, to go over the objectives really quickly, what we're going to look at is you should be able to list factors that affect industry location. We should be able to differentiate between inputs, processes, outputs, and feedback, okay? And all of these are processes that are involved in the industry as a system, okay? And then we're gonna look at how linkages can negatively affect industries as a system, okay? So let's get started. So the importance of industries. Industries are really important. The society we know today is built on industries, okay? A lot of our livelihood comes from the industry system, okay? So they're important to the country because they provide some of the following, okay? They provide raw materials. We should know what raw materials are. Those are the things that are in their natural state. So that's our carrots, that's anything that's in its natural form that we have to actually change into another product, okay? So raw materials are important in industries. Capital investments. Capital investments deals with the money, okay? Whenever you see a business or industry pop up, it has to be funded by something, okay? And so this is the overhead capital that allows the business to run, okay? And then economic stability. The economy plays a big role in how our industries work because without a functioning economy, some industries do crash or they're going to have a bad effect, okay? So for example, right now, the world is in an economic crisis because of COVID-19, and we see a lot of industries, things that we would rely on, they are now basically on standstill, shut down, and they're affecting us, okay? So when the economy is not good, industries are affected, okay? And so we're gonna look at the life cycle of an industry, okay? So a product can be produced at each of the different stages of an industry, okay? And I wanna shoot a quick question. Does anybody know the 3 main stages of an industry? Can anybody tell me the 3 main stages of an industry? I'm gonna keep moving, but I just wanna see, just testing you, making sure you're here with me, okay? So sometimes when we look at the life cycle of an industry, products can be passed through different stages, and then there's one product that can pass through all stages. They are good, I see you. Kev, I see you. And then you have one product that can pass through each of the different stages. So sometimes, excuse me, so sometimes you have one product that could actually start in its raw stage and we get it in its raw stage. And then you have some things that come in its raw stage and it's actually passed through and it's actually moved through till we get a final product, okay? Good. So let's look at, for an example, so we're gonna look at the life cycle of the tomato industry, okay? So we start off with the seed, and then we have the tomato plant, and then we have tomatoes, then we have the ketchup factory, and then we have the grocery store. Okay, so I have a few things now. Can anybody tell me which of these, which area here would be referred to as the primary stage? Can anybody tell me? Good try, Delvano, good try. Anybody else wants to give it a try really quick? Good, I see you, Miranda, I see you, Keva. Good, I see you, Beyonce. Not quite, Sine and Anthony, not quite. So the first and the primary stage would be the, I'm trying to get my thing to work and I keep forgetting I can't press this thing. Excuse me. So our primary stage is the tomato plant, okay? So the seed and the tomato plant are basically still a part of the primary stage, but let's think about it. When you get a seed, you still have to plant it in order to produce the tomato that we would, in its natural stage, we will be able to cut it, put it on a sandwich, slice it up, put it in food. You understand? So very good. So our primary stage will be the tomato plant. Good. Then can anybody tell me the tertiary stage in this cycle? What would be the tertiary stage? Good, I'm seeing some answers coming in, good job. So the tertiary stage would be, very good, the grocery store, okay? The tertiary stage will refer to where we have our final product, and that's the product that we actually go out and we buy. So for example, we buy tomato paste, we buy canned tomatoes, we could buy ketchup, anything that has a tomato base, can even down to the sauce for spaghetti, okay? So that it would be considered the tertiary stage where we buy a final product. And then last but not least would be our secondary stage. And our secondary stage is the ketchup factory, okay? This is where we take our raw materials from our primary stage, and this is where we convert it. This is where we wash it off, we chop it up, we process it so that we can have the final product, okay? So this is, like I said, this lesson is a jump ahead. So I'm actually going to go over the whole industry. I was going to say tomato industry. I'm going to go over the whole industry process tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to go over the different stages: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay. So now we're going to look at industries as a system. So the factory system includes three main processes. Okay. Our inputs, our processes, and our outputs. Just as we looked in on the last slide, we saw the primary stage that could be referred to as our inputs. Our secondary stage that could be referred to as our processes, and in our tertiary stage, what would be referred to as our outputs. Okay, so industries as a whole, as a system, are referred to as a system. Okay. So our inputs are the items that actually go into making a product. Okay, so these are our raw materials. This is the money that you would have gotten from a bank or a very rich person. The name is escaping me that I should say, but the the investor, that's what I wanted to say. So they will come from a bank, an investor, your labor, things that you will put into your business. So if you know you need a carrot slicer for your carrot business, that would be an input. So all things that you would need to make your final product are going to be your inputs. Okay, so your buildings, the house you work out of, the office you work out of, all of the machinery, all of that would be your inputs. Okay. Next, we have our processes. So processes are the factories or the activities that allow your raw material to become a finished product. Okay, so that involves now your slicer, if you have a machine to wash grapes, if you have a machine that would mash potatoes, all of those things will come into place. Okay, so as our processes, whatever you use to take that raw material into its final stage, that is your processes. Okay, and that could go down even to your packaging. If you use bottles to put your materials in, your final product in, all of those will go into processes. So bottling, labeling, everything. And then we have our outputs. Our outputs is what comes out of the factory when the production is done. So when our processes are finished, it's already gone through its chain, everything has already happened. We now have our final product, which is our output, which we are taking out into the world, which we are actually putting on the shelves of grocery stores, convenience stores, for individuals to buy. Okay, so our finished product and our byproducts, secondary products. And remember, in this factory system, you could actually skip the processing stage where you actually go from having your inputs that become outputs. For example, carrots, and this could be fruits and vegetables in their raw state. Okay, and then we have feedback. Okay, so feedback happens when some of our outputs are put back into the system as inputs. Okay, so feedback is when, for example, you have this investor, he gave you this amount of money, and your business has been going for let's say 2 months, right? And you're making some good profit. People are buying. So people are buying, you're seeing where there's a need and you are making some money. Now, how you would provide feedback to let your investor know that you are actually doing well, the company is making sense, he doesn't have to pull out, you are going to reinvest the money that you would have made back into your business, okay, as an input. So you're going to now put it there as another form of investment for you to actually draw from, that you can draw from. Okay, so that is to show that shows the investor, and this is just an example, the investor that, hey, this works, let's continue to do business, for example. Okay, good. So let's look at it in a table. Okay, so We have our inputs. So these could be our physical, natural, and human economic inputs. So that's your fruits, your vegetables, whatever you're using, your machines, your workers, everything that you're putting into the business, okay? So I gave an example here. You could have your iron ore, timber, wood. You may be making furniture, so you need all these things to put in as your inputs, right? Then your processes is within the factory, where you take your raw materials and you make them into your process, into your good, okay? So you take your materials, you process them, put them together in order for you to get your outputs, which is your products that are for sale, okay? And then your products for sale also lead to you having an income, okay? All right, so this is another table that I found. So inputs, it breaks it down a little bit more, and it's I like it because it actually breaks it down where you could see all the processes that are involved, okay? So inputs are raw materials, are labor, energy, capital, right? We then transfer them into processes. So we now begin processing, we start assembling, we start packaging, right? And then we have our outputs, which is our finished product. Now, our outputs could lead to two different variables, things that could happen, okay? So you could actually take your profits and reinvest them. You could take your products and you could reinvest them. And this is what I mentioned earlier, where we have the investor after the 2 months. So you take it, you now see a profit that you're reinvesting and you're putting here back into your capital, okay? And here you have your finished product. Now you could have it and you have profits or you have losses, okay? Now in a business, anybody knows what it means to have a loss. Anybody could quickly share the answer with me. What does it mean in an industry where you are operating at a loss? Okay, Beyonce, I see you. Very good. Anyone else wants to give it a try really quick? Very good, Kevo. I like your answer. Very good, Sine. Y'all are on it. Very good, Nathan. Good. So I'm seeing some excellent answers. So I'm seeing when you spend more than when you earn, and when your expenses, very good. I love that. I love that you touched on that. You must be a business student. When your expenses outweigh your profit, okay? So when you find that you're in the system, you're in your industry, and you're spending all kind of money to produce this output, okay? You're trying to make this finished product and it's costing you a lot of money, okay? That is when that attributes to your expenses, the money that you have to pay to make this product, okay? And when you find that you make this final product now and it's time to sell it and it's not selling as well as you thought it would, or there's no real market for it right now, people aren't appreciating it, and you're getting some money in, but it's not enough to cover the money that you spend to make it, you are now operating at a loss, okay? And that is not good for the industry, for your industry, let me say that, okay? So you need to, when we're looking at industries, it's important that all of these things play a role in that you do not produce a loss, okay? The main goal of having an industry or having a business is to have profit, okay? Because profit is the only way that you're going to make money, okay? Good, very good. So let's continue. Now, I just want to go back to our introduction, okay? Our introduction was important, and because the Industrial Revolution, when that started in Britain in the 18th century, that is actually what sparked the industries that we know today, okay? So without that happening in the 18th century, we would not have industries, okay? So it was a period of development, as the video said, people went from small farmers to big industry workers, where they would go in and they would be the person sewing shirts, building car parts, things like that, okay? So goods that were once created by hand, that people would do just for their families, they were now being mass produced, okay, in factories by machines, okay? So in the 19th century, it was physical factors, okay, that determined industry locations. And today we're gonna look at why industries are located where they're located, okay? So we're looking at the source of the raw materials. Now, back in the day, in the 18th and the 19th century, can anybody tell me what was the main source of energy? What was the one main way that they got energy to run their factories, to do anything? Okay, I'm seeing some answers coming in. Good, not exactly. I wish, Kashad, I wish. Good, Nathan, steam, good. So the main source of energy in the 18th and 19th century would have been coal, okay? And coal would be that one thing that if the industry could turn back the hands of time, it would not have used, okay? So coal is, when we watch those old movies, for example, coal is that thing that they use to produce the energy, and that's what would cause the black smoke in the air, okay? So people lived in these in these areas located around factories and industries where they could hardly breathe, okay? Because the coal was detrimental to them, okay? So, and they would use this raw material, and then of course they would have to look for more raw materials, right? Okay, so industry locations. Before building a factory, the manufacturer, the person with the industry, should consider major elements in the system, okay? Now, not all the time you're going to have the same elements that's going to affect everybody, okay? So what may affect my industry may not affect an industry that you have, okay? So it's important to look at these factors that we're going to look at to see how it's going to affect your industry, because you want to operate at a profit and not a loss, okay? So this would be where the cost, so the optimal place would be where the cost of raw material, energy, labor, land, and transport is at its lowest, okay? And also where you have a large market, all right? So these are our factors that affect the location of industries. So let's go over them really quickly. So you see we have our factory, right? And we have two main factors. Your physical factors, and then you have human and economic factors, okay? So our physical factors would be the raw materials. Because anybody know what raw materials are? And then we have our power supply, we have natural roots, and then we have site and land. So all of these physical factors, this deals with the environment around us, okay? The environment around your factory. These are the factors that play the most important role, okay? And then we have our human and economic factors. We have our labor supply. We have our capital, our money. We have our markets. We have transport. We have government policy, because a lot of factories can't operate without the government being involved. For example, economies of scale, improved technology, and then recreation and environment. So now we're going to look at all these factors and see how they play a role in our industries, okay? Don't forget, if you have any questions, you can shoot them and I will try my best to answer, okay? So when we're starting, we're looking at our physical factors. So let's look at the 4 physical factors, okay? So raw materials, the bulkier and heavier these are to transport, the nearer your factory should be located to your raw material, okay? You don't want to operate at a loss just to bring in your raw material, okay? Let's say, for example, potatoes. Potatoes are fairly heavy, okay? You don't want to be in a situation where, for example, you are producing box mashed potatoes, or you make shepherd's pie, right? And you sell your shepherd's pie, okay? Now, this is a business you have. You don't want it to be where you don't have access to your raw material and it's going to cost you a lot of money to bring these in, okay? So what you want to do is, you don't want it to be where you're selling shepherd's pie in Eleuthera and you have to bring in your raw materials all the way from Exuma. That's going to be very expensive because you now need a boat, you need forms of transport, that's expensive to you. So if it's cheaper for you, why don't you just move to Exuma, for example, and sell your shepherd's pie there, because isn't that where your raw material would be greatest, right? So you're going to locate closer to wherever you could find your raw material, and it's going to be cheaper for you. You want to limit transport by all costs so that you don't spend that overhead just to get your raw materials, okay? And you're gonna operate at a cheaper cost. So, and most times our raw materials are actually bulkier than the finished products. For example, a sack of potatoes is much heavier than a whole shepherd's pie, okay? Good. Now we're gonna look at power and energy. So this is needed to work the machines in the factory. So in early industries, you would find that they had to be located close to their energy source. And there was no BPL, there was no 3V power, there was no form of the electricity that we have today, okay? There were no power lines, there was no way for this energy to be shared at a long range, okay? So what you would find is industries had to locate very close to their power source, okay? So that would be, if they would use rivers to operate, they would locate next to rivers. So if they needed coal, they would locate next to a coal factory so that they could be in the general vicinity to experience power. And this even goes down to people who worked in the factories. If they wanted power in their homes, they had to live very close to the coal mining or coal or the industry that produced the power, okay? And then we have our natural routes. So our natural routes, river valleys, flat areas, these were essential for these were essential for our industries, okay? So they had to be in these flat areas so that they could have access to natural routes, and that means our waterways, that means, for example, if we looked at back in the day, settlements, when they lived next to water, because that would give them access to move, okay? So you'd have your boats, you'd be able to move to everything, right? And so you find that these physical factors would entice an industry because it'll make it easier for them, okay? Especially when it comes to transporting their raw or finished product, okay? And then you have site and land. So as the size of the plants increase, you need more land, okay? So you would find that they would locate on large prairie type in land spaces where they would be able to build and expand if necessary, okay? So overall, when it comes to physical factors, this is the premise. You eliminate cost by staying close, okay? So the more you get, you make more money by staying close to whatever is going to cause you money, okay? So now we're going to look at the human and economic factors. It's a few of these, so let's go quickly. So labor, right? We know labor is important. This is how most people get their jobs, okay? So this includes both quantity, large numbers in factories, and quality, special skills. So if we're looking at quantity, we're looking at, for example, where you have companies that would, I'll give an example of the Eastern world, where we would go to places like Asia. Let's say, for example, Apple. They would have factories in China and Taiwan and all these places where they could have a large number of people and factories operating at a very low cost, because those persons probably work for extremely low wages, okay? So some people operate where they can maximize labor by having more people by paying less, or you could look at quality, special skills. So for example, having special skills makes it attractive for industries, okay? So let's say, for example, that you have a company that wants to start making straw bags, right? Can anybody tell me it would be more profitable for that company to come to the Bahamas, where you have skilled labor? You know, you have persons who already know how to plait the straw, do everything that is necessary to create the final product. That then lowers, while you may have to pay those people, it lowers your cost on having to train people, on having to bring people in. So when you're looking at, it depends on the industry as well. If you're looking labor-based, you're going to find that they're going to locate for their labor. And if they're looking for more bang for their buck, more people, less wages, they're going to find places where they could maximize like that, okay? So our capital, we have wealthy entrepreneurs, banks, governments. Sometimes they just provide the funds for you to get started. And of course, you have to pay it back over time. We have a time period to pay back. And so that is where you would get your startup money, okay? Because starting out these businesses, they're not cheap, and you need a lot of capital to ensure your overhead is covered until you actually start making a profit, because that could take up to anywhere by about 4 to 6 months before you actually start seeing profits, okay? Now, when we're looking at markets, the size and location of markets they're starting to outgrow the source of our raw materials. So our markets is where our product sells, okay? I'm going to give an example of the straw market, okay? So that is our market for downtown. So when you have cruise ships coming in, that is where they're going to come. That's where they're going to go to buy products, to buy souvenirs, things of that sort. So when you're looking at industries, they are going to place themselves strategically, okay? Strategically in the heart of markets where they know their product is going to sell, okay? I have a really quick question. It's gonna sound crazy, but if you've ever watched the movie Up, and remember the old man who lived in this little house, and over time you watched as he grew, and he grew in age, he and his wife, that they lived in this little, it seemed to be this little quaint, outside of the town little house, right? But at one point when you looked again, you saw this big factory or this big type of thing that was growing around him, right? So the industry and the market changed, okay? It was no longer where he could live in his little home like that. They now needed more landscape buildings, so they had to now tailor to the market, but he was in the way, okay? So that's just a little thing that I thought about it just now, okay? So transport, when we're looking at transport, costs are going to increase when items are moved, are bulkier, fragile, heavy, or perishable, okay? So you want to eliminate your cost of transport by seeing where it's going to be best for you to minimize your costs, okay? So if you know it's more expensive for you to bring in your raw materials than it is to transport your finished materials, you need to locate next to your raw materials, okay? And you would find, so that is where, no, I won't get that example. So if you find that your raw material is light and your finished product is heavy, you need to now locate where it's going to be cheaper for you to actually deliver your finished product, okay? When it comes to perishable items as well, you don't want it to be where you're working 20 miles out and you have to deliver eggs every day. And then you have a high factor, a high cost of you having to deliver your eggs because you're so far away and they could perish, okay? So when we look at economies of scale, you have small units or small factors that may become unprofitable, okay, when you look at it within your industry, okay? So when you have those small factors, you try now to get a larger company to take that small factor in so that it doesn't cost you as much, that it's not going to be a burden on you, okay? Because sometimes you don't want, it becomes tedious when small things in your industry start to lose interest. And so you have to now drop that so that you could actually pick up something else without losing money, okay? Government policies. So governments tend to control most wealth and they can influence industry location, okay? So when the government comes in, you actually have, most companies have to tailor to the government so that they can be able to operate, okay? And I'm gonna give an example, right? Fusion Superplex, where it opened up on Gladstone Road. Does anybody remember how small the road was, right? The road was so small, traffic was congested, and a government policy would have come in place where they had to fix the road to accommodate their people as well as the traffic on the actual road, okay? So when government policies come in place, they actually can benefit the people living in the area as well as the business in most cases, okay? So improved technology, you would find that these economic factors would have come in place around the 20th century, around the 19th century when new technology was coming out. So you no longer needed a messenger to go and deliver this message, okay? So you introduce things like the fax machine, electronic mail, where you decrease the amount of people needed in your business because there's improved technology. And that has a negative effect on most industries because you would find that industries that employ a huge amount of people, they now start to let go and the employment rate is gonna go up because they now have these machines that could take the place of the human that was there. And then, but it opens up a window for specialized workers where you could get more quality workers who could actually come in and fix the machines, okay? So it's twofold where there's a loss, but then there's also a gain, okay? And then you look at human economic factors where you have leisure facilities, okay? Most times when an industry locates itself, you know, you have your labor force, right? Your labor force is not going to come by themselves. Most times they're not going to stay single for the rest of their life while they're working for you. So you're going to have persons marrying, having kids, and you want to make sure that when you locate your industry that there are things in the area for your laborers, okay? So you want to make sure that there are activities outside of the area for them to actually be involved in, to actually care about, to actually stay in that area, okay? Because leisure facilities actually dictate where people live. You may find that there's a person who may be looking for a house that works in a certain area and they needed to be located near a park because they have kids when they're off, they want to play with their kids. So these things will come into play, okay? So now we're going to look at our last objective, linkages, okay? So linkages is when one industry depends on the output of another, okay? And this is problematic now. So linkages, they prove problematic, or there could be production problems or closure of an industry. So let's look at the auto industry. I have it here. So the auto industry, can anybody tell me one factor or one thing that may be produced on a car that may not be produced in the actual car factory? What is one, if we're looking at a car, we know that there's that the places they are building the body of the car. But what are some factors or some things that are on a car that are necessary that are not built in that factory? Good, Miranda. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Very good, Keva. Very good, Ronald. Good. Very good. Y'all are giving me awesome answers. So I'm seeing tires. The car being built is not, they're not focusing on tires. That's coming from a rubber industry, right? Then you have your glass. That's coming from the glass industry, right? The electronics, you have the machinery, all of those things. Those are not coming from the actual, where the actual car is being built. So that is where our linkages take place, okay? You have this one industry, and it depends on other industries for its final product, okay? And so when you think about it, if there's a shortage in rubber, for example, that's now going to affect your car industry, because they can't produce your tires that you need to finish your car. Is everybody with me? Are we understanding? Okay. So, and for example, now, where we have our hotel industry, we have a lot of linkages. There are businesses that actually rely on the hotel industry outside. And this is now when we're focusing on how we are operating today with our industries and this pandemic. It's crazy. And we are seeing where linkages is proving problematic for industries to actually operate, okay? So you need our tourism industry, we need tourists. We're not able to access tourists right now. So our tourism industry is basically at a loss because we can't operate, okay?
Boys and girls, do you know how we use natural resources? We eat many plants like fruits and vegetables. We also use plants to make different items such as threads, medicine, paper, tires, and then we use wood to make furniture. We use animals for pets. Dogs, cats, hamsters, and fish are some examples of animals we use for pets. We also use animals for food. We get eggs from chicken, milk from cows. We get meat from other animals such as sheep, goats, and pigs. Uses of air. Plants and animals need air to live. We fill balloons and tires with air. Air is used to move things like airplanes and sailboats. Birds fly because there is air. Soil. Plants need soil in order for them to grow. Plants also need sunlight in order for them to grow. The sunlight gives us light during the day, and it also warms the earth. Boys and girls, I know you know the uses of water. We use water every day when we drink water, washing our hands when we wash our hands, brushing your teeth, we take showers, we cook using water, and we water our plants. How do we use rocks? Well, bricks are made from rocks. And what do we do with bricks? We build houses. Is your house made of rocks? Yes, most of our homes are made from rocks. Uses of minerals. Well, minerals are used to make beautiful jewelry. And who loves to wear beautiful jewelry? I know I do. And I'm sure your mummies, they do.